if you've had any sense during the Open Eyes class that you are centered in an open space, try to really stay in that open space as much as you can and digest the sweetness of that experience. Feel the relief there of dualism. Feel the sense, the oneness there, the freedom from all opposites. Really, the point of this practice is simpler than we tend to think. We use the friction breathing down the front, up the back, and we use the double breathing exercise. And of course, those are great tools. But where we ultimately want to go is in the opening, the still point between the breaths, or the still points between the thoughts, the still points between the words. The root cause of all difficulties that we as people have as far as taking real refuge in this deeper state is that the mind tends to insist that we stay with dualism. It's me and it's them. It's this or it's that. But really the place where you can, and I know many of you have had the glimpse already, where you can get a glimpse and ultimately get more and more immersed in this deeper state of openness. And those of you who have had glimpses of it, you know that there is an amazing sweetness there. Amazing sweetness in that freedom. And of course, the absolutely best way to be convinced of that is to contact it ourselves. But the texts of Kashmir Shaivism from way back in 9th, 10th century, they already described this. This is what happens. The Tantraloka is one of the best known texts from those days, and it's ascribed to Abhinavagupta. And he was really a great teacher and writer. So he wrote all of this stuff out that he experienced. It in a way was divinely inspired through his own practice. But there he points out, I'll read a couple of things from you that are really quite beautiful, and they bring, if you've had a glimpse of this, you know what he's talking about. The main thing that is being an obstacle to the glimpse and immersion, the recognition that I'm talking about, is ignorance. And we don't say, and these texts don't say ignorance as a way of being arrogant. It's limited knowledge based on the tendency to want to make everything dualistic. And we are really so fortunate to have some simple tools that can bring us into this experience of oneness, this space opening up into a sweet, sweet recognition of what has many names to it, but it basically is that total freedom from our own limitations, our own constructed ego and identity. So he says, Abhinavagupta, he says basically, knowledge of ambrosia of Shiva. Ambrosia, as those of you who don't have English as your first language may not know, is the flavor of Shiva. Shiva has a flavor. This open state has a flavor. And it can overwhelm you. It's such a sweetness and such a weight off your shoulders, both of them. And he says, knowledge of ambrosia of Shiva is basically the light of consciousness and is found in the interval between existing and non-existent, or between two existence. So that means, when we do the circulation breathing or the double breathing, there is a space there that we often point to, the still point between the in-breath and the out-breath, and between the out-breath and the in-breath. If you gradually, slowly, as you practice, shift your attention from the breath and the so-hum, and you can continue to do the so-hum, but basically that space will tend to open up for you. And as you open that space, gradually you learn to hold that space more and more. And it is the opening of that deeper presence, consciousness, light of that consciousness. It's that which basically, slowly but surely, dissolves our need for dualism. It doesn't happen through the mind. We can't think our way to it. It doesn't happen by will alone. We can't wish into the heart and say, yeah, now I want to feel that. It doesn't work, but we can just gently but firmly bring our attention in there and allow it to fill us. And of course, if it's going to fill us, we have to be as empty as possible of our own attachments and our own identity and ego. So, it is really so beautiful. And the world today, is no different than it's been for many, 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 many centuries. There's the limited knowledge or the ignorance rules today as much as it has many, many centuries ago in a general sense. But the more we can go into this experience and have that sweetness with us as we go into our everyday life, the more we are bringing a vibration that can help to liberate, at least on some level, the limitations of that dualism. He also says, I'm sorry, he always uses he because that's 1,000 years ago. Unfortunately, the world was ruled by men. including the spiritual traditions, but he says, he who can hold himself immovable in the unique substratum of the totality of all levels of manifestation, this individual can succeed in everything, having abandoned the breaths that ascend or descend. He penetrates in the center and settles in joy. I mean, that's a long sentence, and maybe particularly for you if you don't have English as a first language, it's a little difficult to follow. But basically, it just says to the degree that we can hold our attention in that center, joy is ours, freedom is ours, no matter what's happening on the outer level. You know, whether you're young or old or middle-aged or man or woman or black or white or green, it's all the same as far as the difference between being locked into dualism as opposed to being able to open to this state, this space with a very subtle energy vibrating in it, very powerful energy, very joyful energy. So try to remember that, you know, when you get filled with thoughts and doubts and analysis and judgment, and you catch yourself doing that, don't bother to blame yourself for it or feel guilty or any of the sort. Just gently shift your attention from your thoughts and your worries to the breathing and ultimately to this still point between the in-breath and the out-breath, and that space that opens there. Now there's only one still point really, but we can identify it in different places. And it's the entry door to what I call the heart of being. It's the same thing as what Abhinavagupta is talking about. The heart of being is that center where there is joy and sweetness, ambrosia, rasa. These are the Indian words, you know, they use these words as a way of denoting something that is beyond the joy of buying a new car or the joy of anything on that level. It's a joy that comes from deeply, deeply within yourself. And I know some of you have had it, and you all would like to have more of it. So I'm trying to point to a very simple process of getting more of it.